Assalamu alaikum, and once again, this is Celin Monique, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about my conversion story to Islam. I am asked all the time about how I became a Muslim, and the story is a longer story and it's kind of fascinating. And so I was like, what I need to do is I really need to make a video on how I became a Muslim so that I can send people to the video when they ask me. And so pretty much, I grew up, so I'll go ahead and get started. I grew up as a Christian, like a Baptist. I grew up in a Baptist household. I grew up going to the Baptist church and going to listen to the gospel music and hear the preacher. And actually, my grandfather was he was a minister, and that's just how I grew up. And, I always had a strong connection with God. And I would always, we would go to church. We weren't super huge into the church, like we weren't in the choir or things like that. But we did go, we went pretty often. And it was just, I had a spiritual connection with God. And growing up, there were always it was weird because there were always Muslims in my life. Like, for instance, we lived in these apartments, and in the apartments, there were a lot of university kids coming over from Saudi, and their country was paying them to go to school here. And so there were so many of them, and it was so funny because there would be 10 of them in an apartment, and they would be in the apartment and they would be taking their allowances. They wouldn't have furniture in their apartments. They'd be all sleeping on the floor. They just have a place to pray and place to sleep. And they would be taking these allowances and going and buying Lamborghinis and these elaborate cars. So they would put 10 of them in a apartment, and that way they didn't all have to pay rent for different apartments. I mean, they were splurging. And so, of course, this attracted my brother because he's like, whoa, these guys are cool, I guess. I mean, I don't know, maybe. But he had a lot of them became his friends. And as his friends, they would come over to the house, and I would see them praying, and I would see, their manners. They had really good manners. They were very kind. And my brother started to pick up and learn a lot about Islam through them. So my brother would always try to relay to me different things about Islam. He would give me books. He would encourage me to read, different materials and things like that and learn. And I respected it. I totally respected it. Just watching them pray, I would say when I grow up, I'm going to be a Muslim. I know it. And then I saw the Malcolm X movie, and then I knew for sure, I'm going to be a Muslim one day, but I'm going to be Muslim when I'm about 50, when I'm done partying, when I'm done having fun. That is when I'm going to become Muslim. So, just fast forward a little bit through my teenage years, I was into trouble. I wasn't into trouble. I was actually a pretty good kid. I just worked, but I did like partying. I loved going to concerts. I loved going to the nightclubs, teen clubs, and dancing and just having fun with my friends and just doing stuff I probably shouldn't have been doing, but it was fun at the time. And then, as I journeyed on into college, I was still into the party lifestyle, but I started to really want to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And one thing that I discovered that I really had a passion for was music video directing. And so I started to go to school for mass communications and get into film. And I really wanted to be into animation and just actually film directing. And, I just wanted to dive in and be in production. And so I was going to school for that. And I started to go to school at Clark Atlanta University, and it was interesting because there were, what was I going to say? I started to, I was really starting to get in, working with celebrities. I was also working at this this stage company, this theater company. I was interning there, and, all of the things were starting to come into place. I was, I went to, some celebrity events. I had also, been in a couple music videos with Nelly and Mystical, and yeah, so those were back in 2000s. Don't judge me. So anyways, I really wanted to get involved in this, but I got into a relationship, and I ended up becoming pregnant, and I couldn't go back to school. I had found out I had left for that summer to come back home. I was planning to go back to school in the fall, and about my junior year of college, at the university, I found out I was pregnant. And so, you know, it was some choices that I had made. And I was really disappointed in myself. And not for the fact that I had the baby, but because of the fact that I couldn't continue my dreams and that I kind of had to put them on hold. And I had to really like grow up, and like all of the partying and bad choices that I had made, they did catch up to me. And so I remember being pregnant, and I was like, my brother, you know, I was getting close to delivery, and my brother was like, you should read the Quran. So he gave me like this book. He gave me this book. And when I read it, it was like a jumbled mess. Even though, okay, I'll show you guys. Even though it's like in Arabic and English, to me, it was coming out. So like this, okay, so like there's an Arabic side and then there's the English translation. I could not understand the English. Like it just didn't make any sense to me at all. And but I continued to read it because he was like, if you read it to the baby, this will be really good for the baby. And I had already been putting like headphones on my belly and letting the baby listen to classical music and everything, because I heard it makes them really smart. It stimulates their brain cells and all this stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to my brother. I trust him. He's my older brother. I'm going to do what he says. So I kept reading and reading, and I got to, you know, maybe about the third or fourth chapter of the Quran. And then I was just like, I don't get it. And I kind of just put it back on the shelf. I put it back. I had respect for it, but I was just like, it's just not for me. I don't understand it. And so fast forward a year, I had the baby. I had been working. I started going back to school, not at the school I wanted to be at. I was like at a community college. I was just so upset, but I was like, I'm going to push through I'm going to push through anyways and fulfill my passion. And so I started to, you know, ask God again. I started to say, you know, what am I supposed to do on this earth? I really want to be a music video director. Can you please help me become a music video director? And so something just told me, go back and get this book off the shelf. So it's like a year later. I picked up this book. I read that year later. Let me show you. I read this first page. It was perfectly clear. I read the next page. It was perfectly clear. I think by the time I got to the third page, the third or fourth page. Now before, remember a year ago, the year before, it was a jumbled mess to me. I could not understand it. It was, even the English was like it was talking in a different language. I think by the time I got to this page, and it was all like God had lifted, like Allah had lifted a veil off of my face, I was like, I'm Muslim. I'm Muslim. I know exactly what I am. I'm a Muslim. And my brother, so I call him and I'm like, I'm a Muslim. And he's like, you can't say that. You haven't said your Shahada or nothing. You can't be. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. All I know is I'm a Muslim. And so he was like, you know, I didn't know that you had to like profess, you know, like the Shahada, which is like saying that there's only one God and Muhammad is his last messenger. Peace and blessings be upon him. Is his last messenger. Like I did not know, or his last prophet or whatever. I did not know that I had to do that. And so anyways, I had been dating my husband. He wasn't my husband at the time. He was my boyfriend or whatever. So I had been dating him a year because I met him maybe a month after I had my baby. I had, you know, dealing with baby daddy drama and all this stuff. But I had met my now husband. I had met him maybe a month after I had the baby. And he was just like, he wasn't a guy, like he wasn't like the other guys. He was real. He had a spiritual side to him. He was very quiet, very modest, very peaceful, very charitable. And it was like somebody I had never seen before. Like, who are you? You know, you're amazing. But alhamdulillah, mashallah. But I was like, you have to read this book. So he's like, sure. So I went and got him a Quran, and he started reading it, and it was clear to him. So he started walking to the masjid. He actually lived down the street from a masjid, and he would walk there every day so that he could go sit and learn. So of course, you know, I become Muslim, and I totally freak out everybody because one minute I'm dressed, you know, any kind of way, you know, just exposed pretty much, you know, just like a normal, you know, 21-year-old girl. Or woman, whatever you want to say, you know, whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like this. So I freaked out some of my family members, and they were really upset and concerned about me. And my grandmother had just passed away. And so I went back home to Milwaukee for her funeral. And this was all happening at the same time. Me finding Islam, me changing, everything. And actually a few of my cousins had become Muslim already. And so at my grandmother's funeral, my cousins had let me know that they had to deal with the same thing, freaking everybody out, and people, just not thinking that this is what it is, like, this is crazy. You've been brainwashed, you're in a cult, like all kinds of stuff like comes up. And so they had been through it already. And my grandmother has said to the rest of the family members back home in Milwaukee, she said, y'all leave them alone. Whatever they're doing is right. Leave them alone. So when I came around, some of my Colorado family was tripping. Y'all was tripping. Y'all got to admit. But when I went back home to Milwaukee, my cousins had already kind of been through this. So my other family members were like, Grandma said to leave them alone. Whatever they're doing is right. So they left me alone, and they encouraged me, and they let me be free. They let me be who I was. They let me learn. And so my other cousins, they sat with me. They taught me how to recite Quran. They taught me how to pray properly. They taught me, they gave me books. They showed me the right way. They gave me guidance. And at the same time, my husband, he was out here going to go walk every day to the masjid, because when I went back home, because some of my Colorado family members were tripping. I have to admit, they were tripping. I decided that I was going to stay in Milwaukee, me and the baby. We were going to stay in Milwaukee for a while so that I could clear my mind, clear my head. And so I ended up staying in Milwaukee for a while, just so I could just study in peace and not be not have to freak them out, because they were already totally freaked out that I had changed so quickly. But to tell you the truth, it really was like, when I go back over it, it really was like that God, Allah, like he had picked me up and threw me onto the right side. Like he was like, you've been playing on this wrong side. You've been doing things you're not supposed to do for so long. Now it's time for you to wake up. And when Allah sends me like messages, when he shows me, I have to change, he doesn't do it gradually. I know for some people, like they may start covering their hair, they may be studying for 2 and 3 years, they gradually walk into Islam. Whenever he wants to show me that I need to change, he doesn't give me warning. He does it real quick for me, and maybe that's just how I have to receive it. Maybe going slow and gradual isn't what is best for me. So he goes, boom, this is who you are, and you got to accept it. And so he picked me up. I feel like he literally picked me up and threw me onto the right side. And I felt like when I became Muslim, I felt like my soul had been locked up. It had been chained for so long. And then my true self had been released. And I was released, like my soul was like actually released. And it's always, Allah talks about in Quran, like how he's placed veils over people's eyes and their ears. He took those off of me. And that's why I could read the Quran clearly, and I could see it. And even to this day, I see it clear. And every day, the more and more I read, the more I discover. I could read the same surah over and over, and I can discover more from it. And so my husband was studying here in Colorado, and I was studying back home in Milwaukee, and we weren't husband and wife yet. We were still, we weren't really dating, but we were like, maybe we should get married, but things were so crazy. So for 6 months we were away from each other, and we were learning. And so then I came back home in June or July, and then July 26th, my husband and I decided to get married. And so we've been married ever since. We've been a strong support system for each other. We love being Muslim. This is just it. Like, it was almost, I didn't choose this path for myself. And when people ask me, like, how did you become Muslim and stuff like that? And I'm like, it was chosen for me. And Allah says, like in Quran, I cannot find, I always forget what surah it's in. But pretty much what he says is, he says, I'm trying to find it. Today he has perfected for you. He says, today I have perfected for you and chosen Islam for you as your religion. And like when you read that, like when Muslims read that verse, it is an amazing thing because like Allah chooses, he handpicks Muslims, and it's just amazing. Like my whole life I have been taught to worship Isa alayhi salam, who is Jesus. I've been taught to worship him, and I never really believed that I should worship a man. Like I'm like, he ate food, he slept. And my brother kept telling me, no, you can't worship him. Like he's a prophet, like he's a messenger, he's a Rasul. I love Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. Even my son is named after him, Isa. But I knew that he worshiped the creator. And I worship the creator of the universe, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the creator of everything, the trees, the sky, the sun, the moon, people, whatever. I worship the creator. And when you know Allah, and when he brings you close to him, there's no other feeling in the world. And so this is my story. This is my journey to Islam. And if you have any questions, let me know. This is kind of just like the rough draft story of it. Maybe one day I'll write a book on it. But yeah, so all right, guys, I will talk to you later. All right, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.